Hey, it's Wanchaloa here. So I've done 8 DNA tests. Now, no, I haven't literally done eight, like as in like did 8 tests, but I did three of them, like physical tests, and the rest I mostly uploaded my Ancestry DNA raw data and on one or two I uploaded my 23andMe raw data. I recently got my 23andMe results back. It was pretty interesting, so I'm just going to go through those today just to show you guys what all this stuff looks like, and especially for one person, what do all these algorithms spit out? How the numbers differ? When I was first getting started, I like would kill to see that type of stuff, especially with somebody that was native, right? So here we go. So one thing I've noticed with 23andMe is I really like the tools. I'll show you guys some of those tools. But be warned, 23andMe undercuts native percentages across the board a little bit more. I would say Ancestry and 23 are on par. They're both considered like the fundamental DNA test that you need, like the best of the best, right? But 23andMe, I've noticed on any native, like will basically undercut their percentages some, which sucks. So here we'll go. European is 47% for me on here, 42% basically Native American. The broadly East Asian Native American, I'm assuming, is the same thing. They kind of like throw in a little bit of the Asian. I pretty much just say it's 43% Native because I've done a lot of genealogy and I've never found any Asian whatsoever. I think it's just like trace amounts of Asian because we have that Native American ancestry from crossing, and we have that little bit of that Asian from the Siberian thing, when we crossed, right, the bridge or whatever. About 5% Black, and then Western Asian or North African, basically Middle Eastern or North African. I call that MENA. I read this article where a lot of people that are Middle Eastern or North African, they like, even though they're technically Caucasians, they feel like they're people of color and that they're not white or like, you know what I mean? Like they're not white or Caucasian. So they've been pushing to create a MENA category. Technically they're Caucasians, but I myself have never really considered a Middle Eastern or a Northern African to be a white person. So, they sure they're Caucasians, but I don't think society or people at large really consider them so, right? But so I separated my DNA. You'll see I average all 8 together. I'll show you guys that at the end. I have one where obviously you have the MENA category separated, but obviously it's really simple math if we just added the MENA category to the European, right? So we'll do both. This is really cool because it'll tell you right here, the Ancestry Timeline, what time they estimate you had a ancestor that was 100%. So for me, it says that it most likely had a second great-grandparent, third great-grandparent, fourth or fifth who was 100% native, and this person was likely born in 1790 and 1880. I don't know who my ancestors will be 100% because when I do the genealogy, they just say if they're indigenous or if they're not, right? They don't really, supposedly they'd be 100%, but I mean, the priests kind of eyeball that shit. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Here it says I would have had a 100% Jewish ancestor when in 1730 to 1820. So 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th or 7th grade or greater. Pretty interesting stuff, like right here to play around with. They also, a Redditor told me that if you get your parents to do this, that it'll improve your ethnicity estimate with 23andMe. So I might be asking my mom and dad if they'll get on here because then they're able to compare all that within, you're the closest related family member and yours together, and they're able to even refine it more. So I'm interested, if I did my dad and my mom, if my native percentage would jump up from 42. I would feel like it would. I feel like a lot of my Native American DNA is kind of ambiguous sometimes because you'll see in different tests, it comes out more and they say I'm much more than 42%. Then in others, it comes out weaker. So it's really weird. It's all these, every single one of these DNA testing services has their own reference populations and their own algorithms and the way they run things. So, in my opinion, 23 and Ancestry are probably the most accurate. I personally like Ancestry better. I think they have more accuracy based off what I know with genealogy. They have more, and they have more users in their database, and they have a really extensive reference population. So out of the 223 in Ancestry, I would lean a little more towards Ancestry, but not by much. My only gripe with 23 is that across the board, they seem to undercut people's native percentages. That's my major gripe with them. But other than that, they're very, very solid. They have really interesting tools. So one thing that's really cool is they have this chromosome painting option here on 23andMe. And as you can see the breakdown, you can choose the European and it'll highlight it. They have confidence level. Now, here's what's really interesting. That at 50% speculative, we have this estimate. If we go to 60%, the European starts going down somewhat, and the results all seem to change. You go to 70%, European majorly goes to 43, 40, and then 41 native, 4.6 sub-Saharan African, and 3% northern. You go to 80%, and now the Native American is at 40%, the European's at 40%, and the other two have gone down only marginally. And if you go to 90, the highest confidence level they have, you have 38.6% Native American, 32% European, 3.5% African, and then 1.1% Northern African. So it's really interesting how they have this setting with the confidence levels. I think it's really interesting to have that. But I think this also supports my conclusion that if the reference populations with Native Americans grows even better, a lot of that European might turn into native DNA in terms of the estimates, because they're refining this over time. It's not like this is final. That's why they have various versions of this. So that's why, because I mean, look at it, 90%, the native has the highest degree of confidence, but not the European. It's pretty interesting. So they got that. They got like haplogroups, which tell you, your ancestors basically, they trace it back like hundreds of thousands of years, right, to those common ancestors that we all typically share. And these groups basically like share a story and like origin. So in one of my haplogroups, like the maternal, which is a big reason why I did this, is to just because this is interesting. This B2, that's a Native American haplogroup. And the paternal RU152 is definitely European, up in like England and all that. They said like I shared some DNA with some royal type of English person. That's pretty cool, considering I have mostly Spaniard European DNA according to this test. So yeah, this is really, really cool. And I like I said, I don't want to make the video too long, so I'm not going to go into every single little thing. But they even have Neanderthal DNA. I apologize if I butchered that. I don't really say that word that much. But it says I have like 2% DNA for that. It's pretty. So they got a lot of really, really cool shit. Really, really cool stuff. I actually really like this because of how interesting it is. And I already linked up with the relative on here. With Martinez, she's probably part of my Tlaxcala line, so I'm trying to help her out and make sure that we're connected. So moving on, we'll go to Somos Ancestry. I also did this when I uploaded my Ancestry DNA into this. So they gave me 1.13% Asian, 41.14% European. A lot of that being that Southwestern European, the Spanish DNA and stuff. 0% Middle Eastern, 0.35% Oceania, which I'm assuming, it's over here. Yeah, around Australia and all that. 10.98% Africa. Sorry, I'm like getting distracted. So African, and a lot of that's Northern African, which is really interesting. So again, because of that Spaniard type of connection, the Moors, all that, it's not really unexpected to have that. And then 46.39% native. So that's pretty cool because it breaks down this tribe supposedly. Like I said, I don't know the reference populations for this testing service. A lot of people like it. But I noticed that for a lot of people, they get that Nawa-Atomi like percentage really high. Like everybody. I don't know, man. So again, I don't know what type of a reference population they got, but yeah, they gave me 46.39%. It's kind of an odd number, like the 0.39. It was just like, that's fucking weird. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Just another good ethnicity estimate for DNA. MyHeritage. So here's what it shows. MyHeritage gave me 68.9% Native American. They really gave me a high one. Total European is like 24.1. If we count everything, they only give me 12% Iberian. The rest is like Greek and Italian. Then there's the Northern African, Nigerian, and then Asian, which is barely anything. I don't think I even counted that in my averages because it's negligible. But some people criticize this one because they say they overestimate the native DNA. They said in the past they had a mestizo category, and then they did away with it. But even when they had the mestizo category, it was really weird because they would still have a European category. So it just made no fucking sense. But I don't know. I'm taking it. It says I'm 68% native on here. I'm probably not that high for real because all the other tests don't put me that high. This is the only one that does. But it is pretty interesting that this one is very, very generous with their native percentage DNAs when it comes to us. They really give us a high one, give us low European. So who knows? I mean, who knows who really is the most accurate with all these algorithms and reference populations? Some people give this test like some grief, but what if this one was accurate? Who knows, right? That'd be convenient for me, though. I did Crigenetics. People said that this was a scam and that they suck and all this other shit. What I got to say about CRI is I wouldn't call them a scam. So in terms of the racial estimates, they're pretty on point. This isn't anything out there. In terms of the location, as you can see, I don't have any Peruvian, nothing, or Colombian or anything recent like that. And then most of the European is like Germany, Italy, and then just a mix, and they barely gave me any Spain. So that was really interesting. That was the first DNA test I ever took, so it really took me through a loop when I did AncestryDNA and had a bunch of other conflicting stuff. But the native Euro split stayed pretty consistent. And this one, they gave me about basically 55% native, 45% European, nothing else. They just said I was an even split. They got a bunch of other traits and stuff here, and they have like an advanced timeless and advanced analysis of like what your ancestors 5 generations past this, what their makeup probably consisted of, right? And it says I'm straight up Peruvian, like after 5 generations, which I don't believe because I've done a lot of my genealogy, and that's pretty inaccurate. But again, the racial estimates is actually pretty on point. So this would be good if you just wanted another average. The thing is, you can't upload DNA into them, so you would have to shell out like an extra like $80 to $100. But this is the first one I ever did, so I didn't really know any better. Family tree, oh, by the way, I did upload my Ancestry DNA results onto MyHeritage. I forgot I mentioned that. Same thing with family tree. So with them, I thought this was really interesting. They gave me 58% European. That was really, really high. It's like the opposite of MyHeritage. And I was like, wow. Because no other test gives me anything remotely as high as this. So I was really, really shocked when I got it. And then 36% native, which is pretty low. 4% Middle Eastern. And then like the rest is just negligible stuff. Barely anything. Like I don't even factor that into the averages, actually. Because I didn't think it was that important. Either way, pretty cool stuff. 43% Iberian. So they're quite generous with that Spaniard, basically assigning me that Spaniard DNA. Pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, I honestly, I'm a sucker for these DNA tests. Like I really like seeing the different breakdowns. It's really interesting. But I also think it's like kind of dangerous, like where people like, it's like, you should take multiple, or you should just stick to the 2 ones that are like the foundational ones, like 23andMe and Ancestry. Because if I had taken FamilyTreeDNA, I don't know where I'd be in my identity journey, because I would have been like, oh, I'm mostly European, like by a good margin. So I don't know how I would have felt about that right out the gate when I started my journey. And then if I would have taken another one, it would have flip-flopped that whatever identity I thought of with this, So it's just like interesting. Take multiple DNA tests. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and just be like, oh, just because of this one, I'm this. I would say take multiple ones, but definitely do Ancestry and 23 if you're just going to do 1 or 2. Just do those 2. These out here ones, like MyHeritage, Family Tree, you know, they, as you can see, they vary wildly. So there's that. LivingDNA is like some company that specializes more in European stuff. You know, European ancestry. I believe they're in the UK, but they allow you to upload your shit in here for free and get a free estimate. So I highly recommend you do that. Just get one for free, right? Same thing with Jed Match, but we'll get to Jed Match in a minute. So I uploaded both my Ancestry and 23andMe raw data into here. So for my 23andMe, it gave me 51% European, and then 47.2% Native and 1.8% African. So pretty interesting. Now, if we change this to my other one, which is my Ancestry DNA raw data, it gave me some quite different. Like not quite different, just marginally different. So 49.9% European, 45% Native, it took it down a notch, 2.9% Asian, and then 1.9% African. So pretty interesting. Like I said, this is for free, so I would upload your thing here just to get an extra estimate. You know, it wouldn't hurt. This is for free. It just gives you something else you could average something immediately with after you watch this video if you'd like. Here is what Jed Match looks like. This is for free too, so this is like a freebie that you could upload your stuff and kind of take a look. So their stuff is kind of weird in terms of the titles, right? So what I chose was MDLP World 22. That's the best one if you have a lot of Native American ancestry. So that's the calculator I recommend for this type of estimate. So they got like North European Mesolithic, Arctic American, South America Amerindian. Here we go is North Amerindian, Atlantic Mediterranean Neolithic. That would be like European. So you can look up, you can look up like a chart, be like, or just a guide, like what do the categories mean in Jed Match, and there's plenty of good articles that'll break that down. Which I count all this up, but I won't go into that here. I just want to show you guys one more DNA test before we go to the averages. But this is what it looks like. So like I said, LivingDNA and Jed Match, I recommend getting on there, uploading your raw data so you could get just those free estimates that you could average your shit with. So yeah, but I don't know too much about Jed Match. I do know that they give kind of low for the European and for the Native both, and they kind of give a lot of extra shit like Middle Eastern and Asian and all this other stuff that doesn't really appear in all these other tests. So I don't know, like people say that Jed Match is really accurate, but then I also take it with a really big grain of salt. I'm just like, I don't really have this much Middle Eastern or Asian and any of these other reputable tests. So there's that, you know, it's weird. And of course, here is my favorite, my favorite of the favorite. It is AncestryDNA. So here they gave me 50% Native American, and they gave me like this huge ass rainbow. So 27% Spain, 9% Portuguese, 3% Irish, 2% Jewish, 2% Northern African. Scotland is 1% Indigenous. That's, you know, if you add all the Indigenous stuff, that's how I got my 50%. But yeah, really interesting stuff. This is going to be a total about 46% European, 2% Black, 2% MENA, and 50% Indigenous. And as you can see how it breaks it all down, it's a little different from that 23andMe report. So that's what's pretty interesting, you know. That's why I don't know. I think I like, as far as the breakdown, I would say I like AncestryDNA's better. The breakdown it seems much more precise, and they also have these little subregions, and these are pretty accurate. Like I said, I have most of my ancestry is from San Luis Potosí, Nuevo León, around here, this Guachitil type of territory. I got a lot of ancestry genealogy wise. But yeah, as you can see, they break it down a little bit better, in my opinion, than 23. But 23 has all those extra tools, which are really, really cool, like the haplogroups and the confidence levels and all that other stuff. So that's why I recommend doing both for these. But it's really interesting stuff. I got my little brother on here too. But yeah, the one thing they don't have on here that is they don't like have that if you upload your family member's DNA, then it'll help refine your estimate. Whereas 23andMe does have that. So like I said, 23 has a lot of cool extra shit. And then Ancestry just, I think, has the most accurate estimate that you can get, right? Based off all the ones I've seen and the genealogy, I'm just like, I really think this Ancestry is probably the most on point with their estimate. So if I had to pick, if I wasn't going to average my test and I just had to pick one to go by completely, that's it, I would pick this Ancestry DNA test. I would go by Ancestry DNA all the time if I just had to pick one to go by. But if I was going to go by my averages, I mean, I'll show you guys. So these are 8 DNA tests. But like I said, 3 of them I actually took the test. 5 I just uploaded data into, right? So yeah. But it's technically 10 because I uploaded multiple data like 23andMe and into LivingDNA and Ancestry into LivingDNA, and then the same thing for Jed Match. So it turns into 10. So that's how I did my math. This is what it looks like on my Excel document. So I got the DNA test up here. What type of raw data I uploaded into there. Categories: Native American, European, African, Asian, and Middle Eastern, and Northern African, so META. So, one flaw with this is, well, since I have Ancestry raw DNA estimates from MyHeritage, Family Tree, and Somos Ancestria, well, what the hell, Juan? You need to get 23andMe estimates from all 3. And I probably will, but I need more money. So I'd have to spend like $40 for Somos. I'd have to spend another 25 for MyHeritage, another 25 for Family Tree. So I was like, I didn't want to drop all that money. It's like $90 for another set of shit. And I mean, the estimates can change marginally, but I don't think they're going to change much. Like, as you saw, like my LivingDNA, the native just went up like 2%, with the different raw data. So yeah, so basically I just counted it all up with these 10 technically, right? But it's really 8 because it's 8 platforms. That's why I call it 8 tests. It's 8 different platforms. So here is what it looks like. I averaged all of these together. Like I said, I added up all of these 10 values and then divided by 10, and then that gave me the average for Native American. I went around doing that. So here is what it looks like. Here is what it looks like. Native American 47.89, European 43.35, African 2.41, Asian 1.16, and Middle Eastern 4.88. Obviously, to make it clean, I always round down and up. So Native American 48%, European 43%, African 2%, Asian 1%, and then Middle Eastern or Northern African MENA 5%. So that's a split. If we have the MENA category, I'm more native than anything. But if you add the MENA because you want to be really technical and say they're Caucasians to the European, then it literally turns into 48% Native American, 48% Caucasian, and then some change like the 2% African or whatever, and the 1% Asian. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I don't even know if did I get my math right with that actually. I might have had like an extra percent. It's just because like I said, on a lot of these tests, like it didn't, like the Asian didn't pop up on a lot of these things, right? So either way, pretty interesting. I guess you could say 48, and then maybe do away with the Asian or just keep the African. It's fine. I didn't double check the math. I was kind of finished doing it, and math's never been my strong suit anyways, guys. But either way, this is what it looks like. Asian, like I said, I've done my genealogy. I've never really found Asian ancestry on anything. So I would say Asian is probably just trace amounts of Native American DNA that's being confused. So I would say probably 49% Native, 48% Caucasian, or whatever the hell, or 43% European if you want to use the MENA. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's what it looks like. Either way, what this all tells me is basically what AncestryDNA told me, which is really funny. AncestryDNA pretty much says, okay, you're 50% Indigenous, 46% European, 2% MENA, 2% Black. So basically, essentially, I'm like half and half. I'm essentially half and half, maybe a slightly more native. This is essentially saying the same fucking thing after all these tests, is I'm pretty much a duality, which I've always been that. Half and half. You know, some people are like, oh, you're the epitome of mestizo. I mean, I am, but again, I don't identify with the term. I identify as Native American. I've found my tribes, part of my indigenous community. I've joined them, you know, the Guachichil. I'm Tlaxcalteca as well. So identity is a choice. But yeah, this is what all these tests look like. I just wanted to go over that with you guys, and hope you enjoy the video. Hope you got something out of all this, and you enjoy seeing all these tests just like laid out in terms of percentages. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, help us get to 500 subs. We want to get to 1,000, but yeah, help us get to 500. We might have a reward or something.